Hello, Evertonians. Welcome to Follow Everton. And normally I would be doing a match reaction focusing on the result. Everton under 21s did actually win 1-0 today against Bolton B team. And very shortly after Everton took the lead, the game was quickly brought to a hold and ended, in fact, for the stadium evacuation. I'm here to just give a few thoughts on what I thought about the experience today. And it is candid. It is raw. I know there's going to be people, why are you moaning about certain aspects of things? Not moaning. I'm giving you the facts, the way I saw it, and the experience true to actually how it was for myself. And I'll also bring in a few pictures and talk about the experiences of a few of the fans who were in attendance today, who I spoke to. Some of them had approached me as subscribers, and others who I was just chatting casually to. And I think it's important to get the opinions of a lot of fans, and it's Everton have got a lot to learn off the back of these test events. But I also think more than anyone needs to learn is very clearly Liverpool City Council, who I did speak to a couple of people on the council as well, and I'll pass on some of the information as well in due course. Let's first and foremost talk about access and traveling. So let us know if you're in the comments and you were at the test event today or not. Test event traveling. Well, I'll talk about the experience of people who were on the train, including two of my family members. They said that around 2 hours before the game, Sandhills was a mess. Just because of so many notes of different people here. The issue with Sandhills perhaps was getting actually out of the train station once you'd already got to Sandhills. Took around 15 minutes to get out of Sandhills train station, and you couldn't just get out to walk up to Bramley Moor or your onward journey. It took around 15 minutes. And it was very clear that it couldn't cope with the capacity of 25,000 Evertonians today. And God only knows how it will be with 50,000 plus capacity fans in the ground, because you do fear that it would be a real challenge to meet the needs of the fans. And what I got told was, 1 second, the trains just need to run more trains, longer trains, and they need to be more active, because what was with all of these fans in the back? You've got to have more capacity. They were talking about the trains coming from the south of the city going into Sandhills being every 30 minutes. There's 8 carriages on the train. It's not enough. You know that. It's just not enough. It's got to be doubled and more. It's got to be every 10 minutes on a match day, and going north as well from Sandhills. And then the Everton Stadium during the match announced that the Southport line had disruption and that all trains were off. And this is the sort of thing where Liberty too. This was an intruder apparently on the tracks or in the station, but we're at Liberty to Sandhill Station at the moment, and if that has any problems, getting away from the game or getting to it is an absolute farce. But in terms of what fans have been saying to me, is that Sandhills was at standstill around 2 hours before the game, and it was very tight in the carriages. They were packed in, and it was just a non-starter, and they've got to ramp it up a little bit more. For those, some other experiences of people, they were saying that they had gone to Liverpool Lime Street Station. There was a couple that I'd spoken to who sit in the top balcony at the moment, just bought season tickets. They've got over 20 years tenure. They're in the upper west stand, and they came from Chester. They went into Lime Street, and they said the train to Lime Street was okay, but it took them 15 minutes to queue. 15 minutes to queue from Lime Street onto the shuttle bus to get to Bramley Moor station. Sorry, I've just completely lost my trail of thought there, because there's comments here. Can we just stop talking about? Can we try and stay on topic, please, for the stream? 15 minutes to get to queue up to get on the shuttle bus that would go to Bramley-Moore from Lime Street. And that is just I'm muting you, I'm sorry. I can't have that popping up on my screen every second. It's just annoying. Every 15 minutes coming in. Again, throw me off. I'm just going to full screen this now. They'd gone from Chester into Liverpool Lime Street. It took them 15 minutes in a queue to get on a shuttle bus to go to Bramley-Moore. And then it took them 30 minutes actually on the shuttle bus to go from Lime Street to Bramley-Moore. So they said the experience, the journey from Liverpool Lime Street to Bramley-Moore took them 45 minutes. And this was 2 hours before kickoff. Now, that was longer for them than it took them to get from Chester to Lime Street, which I think is completely unacceptable, really. And I felt for them, but this is the reality. So Sandhills was chaos at a standstill. Lime Street was running shuttle buses, but because the traffic was so bad, and I don't know whether that was just London, not the London Marathon, the Liverpool Marathon, but there were so many other aspects that could influence this. And it's only you fear that on a Saturday afternoon when town has got so many people there, general public going shopping and out, stag do's, hen do's, watching the football, say Everton at home, Liverpool away, there'll be people in town. It's going to be, I've got a button I can mute people, Chris. It's going to just be really difficult. And Everton obviously have got to learn from these test events. So if we don't say and give our feedback and say how it is, then they're not going to improve. They're not going to learn from it. But it is what it is. It's Liverpool City Centre. It's always busy. Loads of one-way systems. It's going to be really difficult. And I don't see how it can get massively better. He's only in a short timeout because it was just popping up talking about Liverpool. So Sandhills, Lime Street, there was another group of fans that had told me that they had got the shuttle bus from a different area, and that was fine. Walking up to the ground, there was thousands and thousands and thousands of people walking up. In terms of parking, there is a small car park on Walter Street, I think it was. And around 300 cars can park there. And then you've got the Taipan. Emma saying she got a taxi and walked from the Taipan. There was no problems, but the bus to Bootle back was fine. Coffee, horrible, worse than Goodison. Yeah, we'll talk about some of the food and drink options in a moment, Emma, and you can give us some more thoughts on that. But there was talking about taxis just on that note on the corner of Dublin Street. So I'm trying to get this all together. You've got Great Howard Street, and then you've got the Pall Mall where it continues down. You've got the corner where Dublin Street is, and I think I might be able to just show you a picture of this, actually. It might be easier to do it like this. Don't think this is going to work, actually, what I'm trying to show you. But on the corner of Dublin Street, there's meant to be a taxi rank, and it was closed. The road was closed. So you've got your main road, which was completely pedestrianised in the build-up to the stadium. But then you've got all these intersecting roads coming off the other main road, and they were all closed. And there was like stewards and crowd management people there. But some of the cars were quite literally driving up to it, and they were moving the cones to allow them to go down. So I wonder whether that was blue badge holders parking there. But the thing that threw me off a little bit was that one of the areas, and I did speak to a member of the council who was stood there. It was a road closed, but it was meant to be a taxi rank. So they're making some mistakes. They said that Dublin Street would have a taxi rank, and it didn't. It was complete nonsense. So that was really disappointing. But you could get dropped off. You there, Basil? Am I coming in there? Or... You're going on your own because the dynamic microphones will be fine. You just put your headphone in. No, you can sit on the couch. Oh. Yeah. Got Basil here, but he's going to be speaking to me separately. I think I've got a bit of a headache after going to that. All that commotion. I was going to say, I was looking at the map. Wonder if we can share the screen of the map. Let's see if this works. There's a lot to talk about, honest to God. And the match finished 1-0, by the way, for those wondering who were bothered about this. But this is Everton Stadium here. So what I noticed was Great Howard Street. That was accessible. So you could drive up and down Great Howard Street. But what happened was when we were in the car, we were getting dropped off for this. And we drove down to this new quay along the Radisson Blue. Now, this junction here, A5052252, by the Mercedes and the BMW dealer, this was like gridlock. This was really impossible. There was traffic coming from east to go into Costco. And then there was traffic going northbound towards the new Everton Stadium and then southbound out towards town. David, are you just getting set up? So you should be an admin. You should have that. I'll text you it. Sorry, Chris. Well, he can come back. It's only a short time out. I thought he was getting on your nerves, to be honest. So this was great. This was just major. And we were driving along here past the Malmason, and we just got stuck here. Because the traffic coming from the east was also looking to join on or to go into Costco, and it was at a standstill. And to be honest, you had to make some sort of maneuvers to get around to get onto Great Howard Street. Now, you can't go along Waterloo Road. Don't get any ideas about going down here. This is all blocked off. Match day traffic, Regent Road, non-starter, sorry. That's north and south. That's pedestrians, and I get it. It's for safety. You can't have cars going down there. You understand now, this Cotton Street and Dixon Street and Dublin Street and Saltney Street and by the tobacco warehouse, these all had like a person stood at the top on Great Howard Street with like road closed sign and cones and hello high vis jacket. You have to change it so you can hear. And you pull your microphone down. Close to your face. Sorry, my brother who's just been a match with me. He's going to jump on as well. But this Great Howard Street, the roads were closed going downwards. But what I did notice was a few cars were like being let in. I don't know whether maybe they run businesses or they have permits or whatever, and they need access. So they were allowed down there. And there were some disabled parking people when you were walking past. There was some cars with blue badges on. So they must be letting some people go down to get as close to the stadium as possible. God knows how this is going to be with 50,000 people there. But what does really worry me a little bit was what I talked to you about before, was that there's meant to be a taxi rank here on the corner of Dublin Street where it meets Great Howard Street, and it was just a road closed. And so there was no taxis there. And there should have been taxis there. And I'm just disappointed because I think that was an option people needed to get out of the stadium as fast as possible. So Basil.
Hello?
Back from...
I don't think this sounds...
Wait,
I don't think this works.
Hang on. Give us a second, guys. What's your microphone you selected? Will it disconnected?
Hello? No, I'm going to hear myself back, so that's not very useful.
It's not echoing, so it doesn't matter.
If you say so.
Just a few teething problems here. Oh, it's echoing back.
I'm going to go downstairs.
It doesn't make sense because usually your headphones, you can only hear me through your headphones. Okay, maybe when you're not speaking, hold your microphone away and mute it. Testing. Yeah, when you want to talk, pull the mic down and I'll be quiet. We'll give it pulling the cable down to keep it in. No one can hear you. You might have to go to the lounge. Okay. You're going down. It should work. It's dynamic mics. Why would it feed back?
Why can't I sit there?
You could sit there. Do you want to sit here?
On the stairs.
Go on. Go on then. So sorry about that, guys. I'm just trying to get Basil from the channel involved. Nice to see Lila in the comments. On match days, would you still be able to enter through the gated stadium also access and visit the personal stones? I hope so. Bike would be okay. There are some bike places to put your bike. We'll come to some more comments in a moment. I'm just waiting for David to get set up. We've just been the game together. Look, we're not being negative. We're just giving you the facts. We're just giving you objectively what we saw. Now, in the walk-up, you can't get your car anywhere closer than, I'd say, Great Howard Street. You can't go down there, Dixon Street, Dublin Street. They're all closed off. Regent Road's closed off. What do you expect? Now, there is the Walter Street car park. So if you were to go down Great Howard Street, you could have parked in Walter Street. And you can also go further down into the Taipan and use that car parking. If you've got a blue badge, all of this section here is all residential. So you could go up one of these side roads and park without issues on a permits bay. Now, if you haven't got a blue badge, you've got the problem. There isn't anywhere realistically to park. That isn't in the permit zone. So you're looking really at these two little car parks. There needs to be something else. Now, you look at these landowners, these private landowners, can they open their businesses up on to match day and maybe charge 10 or 15 pounds for parking to make it easier? Coming from the east, there's options. Just don't be expecting to come from south up to the ground and dump your car. That's not happening. Okay. Have we got Basil? Are you there, Basil?
I thought I was there. It looks like I'm there, but am I?
Yeah, we can hear you great. You got any thoughts on the build up to the area around the ground? Obviously, just touched on the situation we had today, which was more around Costco because of the traffic, people going in there. That was quite difficult. I mean, obviously, we got dropped off not far from. I can't remember the name of where we got dropped off. It was
Benson.
Yeah, we got the sign
Benson
place.
for beds.
We got dropped off by the sign place and then walked up. That was around 0.6 miles. And it did take us around 20 minutes to get to the ground. And in the build up to the stadium, there wasn't any Wi-Fi. I was trying to do a live stream. There wasn't any signal, David, was there? And you're on a different network.
There's not, yeah, at the moment, there's not a lot going on around the ground, and it will come over time, but there's not really, there's an odd pub, isn't there? And there's no real like food outlets, places that you would go and have a meal before the game, or just shops, it's quite industrial, it's quite derelict. Most of the streets are blocked off for the, restricted.
But we absolutely knew that, David. We knew that it was a derelict and a lot of businesses and industrial things. So we're not moaning about that at all. We're just saying,
not moaning about it, but that's what it is. And it's going to take a bit of time to transform it. It'll be quite different in a few years.
Yes, they're developing the area. Thank you, Andy. It's Benson Signs. It was just very, very busy. And we were there an hour and a half before kickoff, and it was very, very busy. And we think, to be honest, that was because most people decided to go early, wasn't it, Basil? Most people were getting in the ground around an hour before to see what it was all about, to experience and do like a walkthrough of the outside and the inside and that sort of thing. So possibly similar to match day, but David, it felt really busy, didn't it? The roads, and that was just with 25,000 in attendance.
Yeah, really busy. Yeah, I think everyone was going early, as you say, but I think that's still reflective of the situation, because there's going to be more than double the amount of people heading to the stadium and when we open up properly. So you are going to get fans going in over the course of the hour before, a bit earlier, a bit later. It's okay. I mean, that main road, which is the main road that goes?
Great Howard Street was where we were, where we turned right.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of space up there that is pedestrianised off during match day, so that's kind of works okay. It was interesting on the way out more than the way in, when there was masses of people in the same area. But walking up is okay. It's not like people were getting in your way, getting in up to the ground. What else were you?
Yeah, well, no, I'll just
talking about. I mean,
things, yeah, David. We were there at the East Plaza when we arrived. First of all, the build up to it was a nice walk, wasn't it? Really, up to the stadium, nice feeling about the place. And then what instantly hits you, the size of the stadium. It is huge, and we'll talk about inside the ground in a moment, where it almost feels quite compact, but big at the same time. It's kind of a weird sort of feeling, but you sense that kind of grandeur to it. And I know you touched on, you're not mad on the color of the bricks, but the reason behind that, David, as you know, is to try and blend the building in with the surrounding buildings, and to keep it in with the skyline. But the overall design of everything was very, very, very polished, wasn't it, David? But almost too clean, would you say? Too clean and quite lacking that kind of a little bit of character where it's needed with the Everton brand.
It's lacking. Obviously, it's lacking the branding, which we touched on and discussed privately in our group chats and everything since the first test event. It's lacking all that branding, but beyond that, the architecture, beautiful as it is a little bit just, I would say, like repetitive. It's quite consistent. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna take some getting used to, because Goodison is evolved over many years. The stands changed, and it changed over time, and they're all built in different ways, and they're kind of put together. Whereas this is 4 stands choreographed at the same time, built together, purpose built. So it does feel a bit more like they all are the same thing.
But
So
that's the
it
idea.
does lack that bit of
Very
character, but
I don't say it lacks character. I know what you mean. It's sterile in many ways because it needs to grow with the team. And I kind of agree, David. I don't want to be bringing in statues of Dixie Dean, and I'm not being disrespectful, but we need to build in our own history, modern history, and not kind of find a balance where it's not just, let's just bring everything over from Goodison Park. Let's make our own history here on a new stadium.
Some
And
of the
Lila says character will form over many years. Thanks, Lila.
If we talk about more around the ground rather than the actual ground, yes, the actual ground. I'll talk about the actual ground just briefly. The bricks. I mean, it's quite repetitive, and as you know, I'm not a big fan on the color because it's a
David,
red
just
shite
give some
color.
context, please, of why you might have more authority to discuss this than someone else. Well, not authority, but
everyone has their own opinion on it. Everyone's a designer in their own right.
You're doing your seventh year architecture, so you've worked in industry for a few years now, so you see lots of different buildings, but you have to appreciate that it's designed to blend in with the dock area.
Yeah, I don't think the budget would have extended to having bricks that were a bit more textured, a bit more variation in the bricks. They're quite just consistent and in the color, and I think, I thought we were meant to see the Archibald Leitch patterning within the brick. I'm not sure whether that is on the other side or not, but I remember seeing that in the original renders. I didn't notice that today. It just felt like the stripes. And yeah, no, I really like the way that the metal sits on top, and particularly how it meets at the south stand, and you get this sort of opening, and you can look over the water down to Liverpool, and that's really nicely detailed, and it lines up really nicely in all the colonnade. And then you'll have Everton Way. But the actual plaza around the ground's great as well. But the railway lines they've kind of embedded within the stone. That's a great little nod to the history. The dot walls, I don't love the fact they've cut them away when they're historic, but I understand about the need to create more openings.
I feel they still need more, David, because you looked at when we tried to get out the ground after the full-time whistle, and it was just that exit point that was just like,
yeah, it will be busy. It will be.
And that was that was probably with only 15,000 people left because so many people leaving. We'll come on to that in a moment. But
that's what they were testing, though, wasn't it? They wanted to see people go at once, a mass amount going at one time.
Well, all they need to do is put the Seamus Coleman testimonial on and put a first team out, get Roma over or another team, and you'll see it, and you'll be able to get all the information you need. They've got to do that earlier rather than later.
I remember something about the original dock formation, and they were gonna change the brick pattern or something to represent where the original dock was filled in. I didn't notice that. That's one thing that didn't stand out, but it probably was there. we're going to need more time to kind of notice some of these details.
Will you miss Goodison based on what I saw today? I absolutely will.
Yeah.
And David, to be honest, it's only being in the new ground, you kind
Look,
of think, I'll really miss Goodison now. And I was really excited to go in Bramley-Moore, but because it is so sterile at the moment and needs that extra sort of just Everton-y feel to it, which will only come over time. It's
yeah,
almost too nice.
You said to me, "Are you coming back for the game?" And I said, "I'm going to come back for West Ham because it's one of the last Goodison games." And so it happens that I've come for this as well. But yeah, I knew before this game that Goodison was quite different, and I was going to miss it. And yeah, but the thing is, you've got to also look at the positive sides of what it. These are your shots. The
Yeah,
positive bits that you probably haven't touched that much on in terms of the way things work inside the ground and the efficiency, the accessibility,
we
the
will touch on
the
this.
food. Obviously, there's teething problems with all of these aspects, but they
Okay, so
will be a lot boosted.
let's talk about the teething problems then, first and foremost. So, when you're walking around the very grand, beautiful East Plaza, you can't really hear the music that was being played. It was only when the Gila, her name was doing her announcements, that you could hear it. So it was kind of just very, very subtle in the background. Wasn't a lot of food choices. There was an Indian, there was a fish and chips, there was two others. So there's 4 outdoor sort of food places, and they were queuing very, very long queues to actually get in, get something to eat outside the stadium. And that's understandable. They're not going to have like 8 different food carts for this. So there was just a few. So that's not of concern, but it was nice to see a few different options, Indian fish and chips and Chinese, etc. And obviously when capacity is full, and they will have a lot more. One thing you notice though, just the turnstiles, David, as you can see here, they're so dark. You picked on this, finding your actual turnstile. Maybe if you're not a regular season ticket holder and you're going occasionally to the game and you don't get used to where you're going, finding that
numbers
illuminated perhaps, or it's just very sort of
I don't
dark.
know what happens at night, but
that's what I mean.
Yeah, unfortunately, whoever designed that, or when it was printed, there's no white edge, and the blue color is almost deep navy purple. It's dark, so you really can't see it until you're quite close to the ground.
And then we moved round, didn't we, David? We went round into this. Sorry, I'm just trying to bring everything together, my notes, and you weren't allowed to. Sorry, you were coming down. We were sitting in the west, so you're walking down this sort of south section. But because of Everton Way, which was still being constructed, as you can see at this point, fans were kind of. It was a narrow passage, wasn't it? Down from the east side, down to the south, and then round to the west. So Everton Way created a sort of a gridlock, and you can see the railings here, and this is what actually happened. I think if there was no railings and Everton Way was open, obviously it opens the whole thing up. And the idea is you're easing that congestion. And we touched upon whether the evacuation was true and fair based on the fact that, well, no, you might leave the ground now, but it's going to be a lot more open when they have the Everton Way section available. So it's not exactly an exit as if it would be on a match day, but then you would have a lot more fans. But then it was the West Stand and the East. The West Stand and the East are going to have a lot more fans. And my worry, I felt like it was very busy, and that was without an extra sort of 25,000 fans. But we're talking like a lot of fans coming into the West, like another 10,000 at least, and then a load more in the East. So it's going to get even more chaotic. So we need that Everton Way obviously open to ascertain and make a fair reflection on that. But once we were actually in the ground, there were some people, David, the person in front of me was struggling to get in. He was struggling to get in. He was swiping his digital ticket, and it was like, I'm behind there, and I just want to get in the ground. And there's no effing Wi-Fi and no phone. And again, I'm just giving you an honest thing. When people say, why is this guy moaning? Blah, 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 blah. Telling you how it is. This is the experience. And, because I couldn't download it because the signal wasn't working, I couldn't get the digital ticket on. It wasn't me. It was my fiance. She decided she hadn't downloaded the ticket. That's on her. She's a bonker. But Some people were struggling to work out how to do the digital. Do I do it on the top? Do I do it on the middle? Or the
You just,
bottom?
it's actually very, very easy. I was straight
It
in.
was
You
this
just,
easy when you
it's
know what you.
almost like paying contactless card, but you hold the ticket and it's at the top of the reader. But if you don't download it in advance, or you don't have things, you don't expect to have signal and be able to do it.
Yes, until they sort this Wi-Fi infrastructure.
It's a general problem. I find this in theaters and stuff like that. These
Yeah.
sorts of places which don't seem to allow it, but they're all going to digital tickets. So, you know, there's people queuing at the
Not
ticket
everyone's got a phone.
office. Mm.
They need to have some physical tickets. But there's some people who were really quite unfamiliar with it and they were struggling to get in, and he was slowing the queue down. But they needed this test event to be able to learn how to do it. And I would just say that Wi-Fi is very important. The sorting the Wi-Fi and sorting the phone signal thing, because on Vodafone it didn't work, and on 3 it didn't work. I've got a dual SIM. Apparently EE worked, but it was in and out. I was trying to stream to show guys what people thought, but that's going to come. That was never on the card. So again, we're not moaning. That's a fact. That's going to happen. But digital tickets, trying to download them, if you hadn't already downloaded them, would have been a real challenge, David. So when we got down, though, we found it easy. We just did contactless like we normally do at Goodison, and we were in very quickly. And what I found was, for some reason in my head, I was expecting it to be so huge and open in, but it was just like a normal football stadium. It didn't feel like Wembley concourses. It didn't feel as big as that. It felt tight, but it didn't feel cramped. It was obviously very, very busy. The food sort of was laid out. So in terms of interior, very, very clean and sterile. Not a lot of Everton, no branding Everton-wise. You almost couldn't tell you were at Everton's ground unless you were told it was Everton. Lots and lots of toilets, lots and lots of facilities if you need the toilet. Seemed to be a baby changing section everywhere, but I didn't see a bloody baby in the whole ground. So I don't even know. Then you've got the food now. The food stalls inside, very big, very wide. They've got the screens. You kind of don't know what each one is at first, but then you look up, you look at the screen, and then you've got the one which is a salt and pepper chicken. And then you've got the next one along, which was the burgers. We're talking the south and west here. That's where we were. You've got the burgers. And then you've got no babies, the test event, of course, Charlie. Just us. You've got the burger section, you had the vegan burgers and the beef burgers, and then you had the pie section where you had a few pies. Now, we'll talk about this in a moment. We're just telling you what the experience was. We're not moaning. You can only order the food that so if you're in the salt and pepper chicken section, you can't go, I want a pie. If you're in the pie section, you can't go, I want salt and pepper chicken. It's a block. It's like a restaurant. So I want to order from this place. I'll order from that. The signing,
Except,
yeah, they need to make it a little bit more clear. Obviously, had the screen.
It's not clear.
Make it a little bit more clear what you're queuing for. With the screens, if they can just change the contrast or the graphic to make it maybe a visual or something, just to make it easier for what you're actually queuing for. And I appreciate the screens, so maybe next time if they've got fish and chips at one, you'd be able to advertise fish and chips, and you don't have to keep taking physical signs down. But I just didn't quite like how maybe there wasn't any photos, or it was just not as clear at first glance.
It's not
really
clear.
Study.
Yeah,
you need to get quite close to it to read it, but the queues were big. So
the TVs are not massive. So you're basically coming in, and then what you confronted with is queues in front of the food stalls on both sides. And if you want to get to a point where you can read the sign, you almost have to be nearer to the front of the queue, but you're actually at the back. You can't see what's going on. And then you wouldn't know that each stall is doing different food until you get to the front of the queue and see a different.
That's what they need.
It's problematic at the moment.
Yeah.
And then we thought there was the same food at every stand, and that each match day was going to be different options, but actually they were just on different stands.
It felt really nice with the toilets, being able to go into a toilet and just having somewhere clean and open and fresh. And that was marvelous. There were so many toilets. The concourse still felt compact. And I'll show you why in a moment, where certain areas felt really tight, but then it was just streets ahead of Goodison Park in terms of the internal experience. And and the big giant escalator as you come into the south stand up into the upper south was incredible. Some really, really special things about this. And then some things that the tea thinks is just being able to see what you're ordering before. And we went over to the pie section, didn't we, David? We went over and you wanted a cheese and onion pie, and another member of our group wanted a cheese and onion pie. You were stood there for a few moments and told after about 5 minutes of fanning around that there was no cheese and onion pie. And then you were ordered a chicken pie and was told there was no chicken pie. And this was nearly 30 minutes or so until kickoff. No cheese and onion pie and no chicken pie. This is just teething issues. They don't know what the quantity for, but there wasn't enough pies. It was a bit frustrating. So you ordered, you were trying to order the vegan burger, but you can only order the burger at the burger place next door, not in the queue for the pie. So you'd have to then go and queue up to go into the burger place, and that was just a bit annoying. In the end, she could see you were getting pissed off, and she brought over the vegan burger from the other restaurant, and we went from there. And I'll just show you a picture of the burger so you can actually see what it looks like for those interested. This is the burger, chips with the skin on, and the cheese was very, very sterile. Not melted in the slightest. Would have loved it. And the reason I'm going to say my thoughts on this, because this cost me £10.50. This wasn't a cheap sort of McDonald's burger, you know. And you can say, "Oh, having a moan." Go away. You don't want to watch this channel. Don't. This is what I'm doing on my channel. Okay, I'm talking about this thing with my brother. We're gonna have a little laugh. We're gonna talk about it. Plasticine based cheese. The bun was nice. I thought the actual burger patty, the vegan burger patty, was actually really tasty. A little bit burnt, possibly, if you're being overly critical. Not a lot of chips. £10.50. You ended up with the same burger. Kevin Kraft says that burger and chips looks foul. James Graham, it looks like plastic. Peter
the
says
cheese it was made of plastic.
I did say, can you melt that, please? And he said no.
He said he'll find out, and then he didn't.
No, it can't be melted.
Just to clarify on the situation with the pie,
I liked it. It tasted better than it looks.
If I'm not being right, that the pie situation was that they took the payment for the pie before confirming that the pie didn't exist. So that's what caused a lot of the issues. We ended up being stood there from 10-15 minutes trying to get to the bottom of whether there was a pie anywhere that could be brought in or whether to refund. And then the way that it sounded when she said, "Oh, here's the money, it's this amount," was like we were paying again, but actually she was trying to refund it. I think someone was asking how much it was. I think it was £6.20 for the pies, and I think the burger was what, £10.40 or something.
£6.40 for a pie. They didn't have any cheese pies, and they didn't have any chicken and mushroom pies. They did have the steak pie, but you don't eat red meat, so it was just annoying. They took payment. They didn't have any pies. They didn't know what they didn't have anything of. But look, teething test events. If this was happening next season, you'd be really annoyed being stood there for 15 minutes waiting for someone to go and find a pie.
It's more than you can get at Goodison, but
really care that much about this, but I think this is quite entertaining. So
are people going to be stood there thinking, where am I get my jumbo sausage? You know, I didn't see that sort of level.
Yeah,
it's a different level of food, isn't it?
Sausage. When I was stood next to the pie place, there's a guy, Shabba, he's a member of the channel. He said, there's no Ubers. He thought Sandhills was a mess. The cars are a chaos. The trains are chocker. He said, you're better off going on a scooter, and then laughed. He said, it's going to become an all-day trip going to football, not just go and come home. It's going to be, I need to get there 2 hours before, and I possibly need to leave before the end of the match to make sure I'm home. Or I wait and I'm there 2 hours after. Now, I'll just move on. Yeah, Charlie, to be fair, the guy who served me said I wouldn't pay £10 for it. And he was working there. But I paid the tenner. I'm fine paying.
It didn't taste bad, to be fair.
You can't get a vegan burger and chips, or even a beef burger and chips of a decent quality in hospitality for less than that. So then we're in our seats, and first impressions were, I'm not really used to sitting on the side, and I want to be obviously as close to the halfway line as possible. But we weren't. We're more level with the penalty spot. We're possibly level with the penalty spot, and here we are. So they had left this section of hospitality and corporate, and club view was obviously no one there, and then it was a lot of the capacity, but not complete. And what you notice about the east stand, you notice it's skewed to the right. This corporate section skewed to the right, and that's because the away section comes more into this east stand in the north area. And we had a little look. This is the south stand. A lot of miserable people there, to be honest. They were like they loved the ground, but you could tell
They were bored.
Yeah. This guy's on his phone.
It was very quiet.
He looks fed up, this guy. They all look like they've had enough.
They look like they're watching the first team.
This wasn't even the game hadn't even kicked off at this point. But this is what's going to happen. It's going to be like a parody, isn't it, of Everton fans leaning over on the railings when we're losing and just getting annoyed rather than being stood up. But don't get me wrong, we went in the south stand. It is absolutely incredible, isn't it, David? The south stand is amazing. But just the fact that you have to stand in the lower section, which it doesn't feel lower, believe me, this goes really high and really steep, put me off because I don't want to have to stand. This was during the game. Any thoughts, David, on this bit?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as I said, we went in different places. So we started over here. And it's a good view. I mean, the picture doesn't really do it justice. It doesn't feel quite as low, I think, from where we were. You can pretty much see, you can see everything. It's a good view. I don't think there is a bad view, but it was interesting that we we went round and just went through the stand. I think about 40 minutes in, we just trying to beat the queue a little bit, try out the toilets, try out the kiosk, and there was quite a lot of people who'd walked out because they had had enough of the boring match, and there was quite a few who also were looking to purchase a donut because they were feeling fresh for some comfort food. But we went and tested out the south stand, and you can notice a difference immediately in the steps. They almost like, I reckon, the top end of the building regs for the rise on the steps. They're quite steep.
They're with 1% of the threshold. You can't go 1% more and it would have been illegal.
Yeah, it was right on the threshold. You can tell, and you're certainly working your calves going up these steps. But it's a bit steeper. You can see it from the south end looking back that the stands are separated out. There's a wall between them, as you can so you can see the incline difference from that picture, can't you? But it does make a difference, and I mean, it's great. You feel like you're only like 20 rows back, like in our current seats at Goodison, but you feel the same sort of elevation, but a lot closer to the pitch.
Yeah, this is 20.
Which is great.
We're in the east here. Sorry, west lower. This is near our season ticket seats, and we're 20 rows up, but we feel quite low down. I almost preferred it when I walked up at halftime to around 30, and I enjoyed that perspective more. And I appreciate that some people want to be lower, and they love that because you're close to the players and the pitch and all that sort of stuff. So I get the balance between the two. But when you go in the south, what's noticeable is the south stand. The equivalent row 20 is probably the equivalent of row 30. It is a lot steeper, and it had a really nice view. I'll just scroll through some of these pictures, Dave, so you can see the floodlights were really bright, really.
It wasn't the nicest day generally. It's a bit foggy, overcast, so the building itself doesn't. It will look even nicer when it's bright and sunny and the metal's shining and the ground, and the atmosphere. It was a bit of a grey day.
Screens are in the right place, aren't they, Dave? I mean, you can't. You obviously have to look up and lift
They're
your
big
head up.
screens. They're, I think, the biggest in the league. Yeah,
absolutely huge, very clear quality. And what also I noticed,
crisp.
Being positive, the screens were great. The sound was magnificent. The subwoofer there was definitely a lot of low end on the speaker system. It was a lot more balanced than what your Goodison, very crackly and tinny. But obviously that brings character. This is just very high end, very polished speaker system. I think I walked up higher. This is equivalent of row 30. This feels like it's further away, but it's not. This is it. it's good. At the back of the upper tier is a really good view. So we just kept walking around, and then taking some more pictures. That away section is magnificent as well. It's a shame it's going to them. This is the upper tier behind us. And then I went for the toilet at half time. And as Lila, I think, pointed out, there's not a lot of toilets, is there? Not a lot of bins, certainly for the food. If you want to get your food and eat your burger on the concourse, you kind of have to stand into the corner because you're blocking someone, which is obviously obvious. But then we want to bin the stuff. I didn't actually see many bins. And then we're in the toilets. This was half time. This was just absolutely rammed full. So we could do with a few more bins.
Yeah, I think on the food situation, some of the items on the food menu are difficult to eat. That's the only thing when you're standing in the concourse, and even sitting down, they kind of your burger slipping out of your bun, and the kind of salt and pepper chips, in the sauce dripping on your t-shirt. So
the burger was slipping out. They needed to put the little stick in the burger, and Wormy wouldn't serve it to his dog. Listen, I thought it tasted nice. It just looked like plastic, but when you got past it, yeah, there was a comment about the toilets. So I did want to see what the toilets were like. There's that many toilets, but all the bins were completely full. There didn't seem to be anyone going around emptying them.
there was big
And then
bins, there was big bins you'd put
the green
outside
bins were concealed, though, weren't they?
Yeah, but you wouldn't know they were there. So people just chucking it in the small bins, overfulling, and then the big ones are out near the door.
There's going to be people moaning about this video, but you got to remember this is a little bit tongue in cheek, a little bit of fun. We're giving you the experience as if you were there and what we saw. I'm not going to come on here and just go, oh, an amazing stadium. I know the stadium's amazing, magnificent, grand, exceptional. We can see that. We knew that. I've talked about this on many times. I'm telling you what it was like at the test event. The bins were full. The food was sold out. It was chaos getting to and from the ground. I'm telling you that. I don't need to come on here and not give you that, because I think that doesn't give you the reality of how it was from my experience. And that is what this video is for.
At the end of the day, it's so difficult. And you've said I work in architecture, and I've been round buildings that our firm has done, and we're quite a large firm, and do quite large buildings, and you walk around buildings that other people have completed in the office, and you can't help but notice that little bit of handle that sticks out, or the little coping trim, or the floor tile. It's just the nature. You always see the issues before you see how good it is. So
It's
it's not like
amazing. It's amazing. Listen, we can all be upset that there's no crests and branding and stuff. We know that will come when we sort the sponsorship out. The phone signal on the Wi-Fi was a shame that didn't work, but we know that was not going to be on the cards. They warned us about it. The food, it's disappointing. They were selling out of everything. Thank you, Lila. Much appreciate it. It was disappointing. Transport, parking, traffic. It was all difficult. There was a lot of negative things. There was also a lot of positive things. I appreciate that a lot. Emma's saying that the mirrors in the toilets are like a circus. I didn't
see any mirrors.
There certainly wasn't any in the gents. This is the view of the West Stand in the second half. Now, a lot of fans had left. They couldn't be asked staying. And what I noticed coming in the steps to some of the areas is very, very tight. This is to go to the to floor level for the disabled and stuff. But then the steps going upwards in the South Stand, this is actually quite narrow. You can only get one person through. So in and out, I don't know how.
Yeah, I'd say that's about about minimum 1.2 sort of.
Squeezing past to get up and down at the same time is going to be a little bit difficult. I don't know. Maybe is this where people exit and you go up that way and down through a different way? I don't know. And that was at block 5. It seemed quite tight. You can see this guy here. He pretty much fills up the whole of the walkway. And then we went and sat in a different corner, didn't we? We a lot of fans had left, so there was so many seats at this point. We went to go and sat in the corner of the east, still in the standing section, and there's not a bad view, particularly if you like to look at glass. as you can see here. A nice piece of tempered glass, double laminated. But doesn't affect you in any way.
I didn't even notice it.
The view in every part of the ground that we sat in was really, really good. Really, really good view. And I think it was very quiet, obviously, because people weren't really that interested in the under 21s. And just a moment for them, they were rubbish for the first 45 minutes. They were rubbish. They had a decent defender, but he looked like Calamity Jane. He was slipping over. Roman Dixon gave the ball away. The keeper should have. The keeper saved it. This keeper that we've got from Saudi Arabia, I think it is, or Dubai. I don't know how that's happened, but we weren't that good. And then in the second half, we actually really stepped it up, and we should have scored a few goals. We were getting in behind Bolton, and eventually, obviously, we got the goal. And we knew there was going to be some sort of evacuation. I was trying to communicate with another member of our group, and the phone, obviously, there was no signal, so I couldn't get hold of them. And I think at the end, we just gave up and bailed. So we didn't. We were tempted to leave, weren't we, David? But then the evacuation happened just as we saw the goal. This is the goal. The celebration's right in front of us. Oh, sometimes these maps can be a bit too fancy for you sometimes. And they were celebrating. This is the first ever Everton goal at Bramley Moor.
They were
Do
happy.
I know who any of these players are? Absolutely know every single one of them. They were loving the moment.
Yeah, I think there's a separate issue about the under 21s and the academy to be had, but that's for another time.
Filthy. It's like people putting their feet up on the seats and stuff. So I had the stadium 5 minutes, and the floor is a mess, and the seats are a mess. It's going to turn sour very quickly. Any thoughts on the goal, David, of Roman Dixon run down the wing, crossed it in? Lovely finish, wasn't it? At the back post.
It's a great header, wasn't it?
Really nice.
Just running onto it.
And they run over here to celebrate in this lovely west corner.
Yeah, should we talk about the seats or
the quality of the seats? Yeah, no, just talk about the quality of the seats. From my perspective, I thought they were really nice.
Solid weight, weren't they? And the space around you. I mean, I felt like there wasn't much more width than at where we sit in the park end, but definitely was more space in front of me. And when somebody stands up so you can get out of the row, you don't feel like you're crushing them on the way out.
There was more space, particularly the West Stand has got more space. I believe it's 800 mil compared to 750 or 750 compared to 700. But there is definitely more width in the West Stand. Around the other areas, obviously, it's a lot more steep. It feels like you've got more space, even in the South, doesn't it? In front of you, more leg room. It's a good job, because Mabsy from the channel wanted to sit next to us, but he would have just been pushing into us all the time. So he's gone and sat behind us. Now we'll have his knees in the back of us. But unless you're 6'4", I think you'll be generally okay. There's a lot of leg room, and very comfortable seats, nice spring, good quality to them. So kudos to Everton. And the shade of blue, I'm happy with the shade of blue there as well. And then this was us leaving the ground. We were happy to leave. And why did we leave, David? Because we had an evacuation. On 65 minutes, conveniently after Everton had scored the goal.
Yeah, 3 minutes afterwards. Well, when he announced it, Rossi just said something like commencing Operation Everton Stadium. And I don't know, I think most people just thought it was some sort of skit on the Everton Goodison Operation exercise. And they moved. And he had to clarify it and say, this is an evacuation thing.
I think he said commencing Everton exercise or something. Operation Bramley Moor. And then he went testing, or he said something and everyone started laughing. Like,
it was like, just kidding or something.
No, it was something. And then a couple of minutes later, it was the real thing, wasn't it? And it was just like, leave.
I think it was like 10 seconds later.
The players were on the pitch celebrating their win at 65 minutes. Everyone else was just like, you've got to go. You know, you're meant to leave. We're not meant to hang around after the game. We were already half out, weren't we?
No, we were in, but
we were in, but we were already by the turnstile. We were like powering out
when he said to leave, basically we were outside in a matter of a few seconds.
It was fast to get outdoors, wasn't it? Even though we were possibly the furthest walking distance away.
Yeah, but if you waited to, and you didn't have a clear route out, it would take a bit longer. But it was fairly easy to get out of the stadium compared to what I was kind of expecting. Did
Yeah,
you
it
not
did
think?
feel. Just touch on something, David. I did mention at half time we went round to go and get some toffee donuts and a beer. There was no beer, and there was no toffee donuts left. What do you make of that? No alcohol
No
and
beer at half
no
time. Could you
donuts.
imagine it?
West,
The amount of people at Goodison who have a beer at half time.
because it's a test event, I'm not going to sit and moan about that because I'm really not that arsed. I'm just giving you the facts. There was no toffee donuts and no beer at half time in the west corner.
It's
Or the
really
south.
hard to know, isn't it, how to cater? I mean, it would be easier to cater when it's a full capacity because they can just test it and then refine it week on week. But
There's a lot of salt and
yeah,
pepper chicken
a
left.
lot of people will
Give
be
it away.
leaving at on 40 minutes to meet their mates, and they go down there and there's no beer. There's a lot of salt and pepper chicken. Yeah, I think that partly because people didn't know it was there. They thought it was burgers or burgers.
My
Toffee
daughter's
donuts, yeah, so many people went for toffee donuts at 20, 30, 40 minutes in that by half time there wasn't that. It's a great sales initiative because if you're not enjoying the game, you're desperate for something fat and sugar.
to cheer you up. My daughter's granddad, he was sending me on a mission to go and find some beer, but it completely told that he was very disappointed there was no beer because the football wasn't that enjoyable. So it was all about kind of just seeing what was the stadium like and enjoying the food and the atmosphere. Don't get me wrong, we absolutely loved going, but Lila's saying she's loosening her seat at Goodison.
Oh, unscrewing the
Slowly
bolt. Take out
remove.
a couple of.
God, they're talking about selling it to Everton Stadium, so I don't know how that's going to work. What are you going to say? Yeah, I touched on the fans who were travelling from Chester before. Talked about the lack of pies and the beers and stuff. It doesn't really matter because it's only the test event. But we were out the ground, and then you've got this little exit point here. I'll just show you again, Basil. Look, I knew you'd get one. Stop whining. We're not allowed to have it. We're not allowed to tell you how it is. Stop whining. It's a beautiful stadium. If you don't like it, don't go. Simple. That's from Carl. Carl mustn't have been watching this whole stream. He must just be jumping in as talking about the selling out of beer, thinking that we're really that. Mummy, they sold out of beer.
It's all about the beer.
This is the. I don't even drink. Couldn't care less. Just telling you how it is. This is the exit here. This point. It's busy, wasn't it? Trying to get out, trying to squeeze through, but it wasn't really that much of an issue. Really, we got past it because we were one of the first out, and then you're on the main sort of road coming up with some closures. This was, I think this was the one where Dublin Street is meant to be a taxi drop-off point, but they've got cones up, so it wasn't enforced at all. This was one of the back roads where there was people parking. So, you got any thoughts? Thank you, Peter.
Sound keeps the. I was just going to ask you what,
David.
What do you think of the fact the away fans have to come out with the home fans? And, you're getting funneled in that exit. There's no doubt you're going to come into contact with herds of away fans.
I don't know.
Historically, would always be kept separately, wouldn't they? They'd have separate ways in. Usually, you put the away fans in the corner, the coaches are behind that sort of end, and the home fans are walking in the opposite direction.
No, but there must be a separate entrance for them, David, and they're going to mingle at some point, unless there's safety concerns.
Don't know. Do they not come through the fan plaza?
Well, why can't they?
I imagine they think they're going to put them at the north of the site. The coaches are going to rock up like north of the somewhere. I don't know where they're going to drop people off.
Going?
Where the hell are they going to drop them? Because every road is blocked off and stopped. maybe they're going to open one of those side streets up to just park the coaches down. Put them at the north of the site, let them unload, and stick them at the top. Because most people, Everton fans, will come from that south because that's where the station is and the town and everything.
Lila's saying there's an email about parking, but I haven't had that. Lila, could you share a bit more information, please?
£275, does that say?
Yeah. Emma's
So what's
saying there was
that?
bag searches and sniffer dogs, but I didn't see any bag searches. Oh, yeah, coming in, there
Yeah, there
was
were.
the metal detector, wasn't the guy with the scanning thing to scan
I thought,
bags?
I don't know. Yeah, he was. They were only checking if you had a bag. You could have been having a padded coat with a dozen knives in it, and they wouldn't have noticed. That, you know, it's no
Yeah.
different to Goodison, really. They're just checking if you've got a bag
There
visible.
wasn't metal detectors and all that. Well,
There's
you
no.
had a
Yeah, it's
bag,
not like
David.
Wembley or the Emirates.
If you don't mind me saying, you're diabetic, you've got a bag, you need to have water, you need food. But Everton said that you couldn't bring in your own food unless you had medical reasons and all that. So you would have been fine with it. But for the general person, you are kind of compelled into testing and using the food and drink.
I didn't read
There.
that. You're not allowed to bring in your own food.
No, and I wonder
Surely
if
it's a
they're checking
basic
bags
human
for that
right.
reason.
You can't bring in a bottle of water.
Don't know whether it extends to water or whether it's. Mm.
I don't know.
And on that bombshell. Excuse me, David. Have you got anything else you want to add before we wrap this up? Thanks for watching, everyone, by the way.
What I want to add, I mean, it's important to end on a positive note and irrelevant of all the nitty picky and funny things that probably we saw today, which a lot of which will get ironed out or change over time. What they've built there is a feat of engineering over a pit of water, 5 years ago, to get
Yeah.
that through planning, to get the construction, but the scale and size of it. It's a lot of work goes on. I mean, I've designed buildings of a lot smaller scale, but still big buildings, and you have to do a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of thinking, and there's also a lot of requirements from not just building control and building regs and EU laws and British standards, but also just like engineers want this put there and structures say you can't do that, and there's a lot of this sort of level of coordination that results in it certain design decisions that you would look at and go, why is that like that? But there is usually a reason behind it, whether it's cost implications, mechanical, structural, or it's just purely bad design. But I mean, of a project of this scale, the amount of eyes on it, it won't probably be, in most cases, just a piece of bad design. It might be cost ultimately, but at the end of the day, they have built, just something magnificent there, and it's going to take time just to get used to it, just the feeling of it, different match days, different environment. But I mean, you might notice a difference when you go back to Goodison in 2 weeks. Just kind of go back and forward. You'll have different appreciations between them.
Well, I miss it. I'm going to miss Goodison more than ever, I think, now.
Yeah, I'm not surprised you're saying that, but I think but certain people, most everyone will say they miss it, but people will also say I don't miss narrow corridors and half time, I'm unable to move, and the lack
Mm,
of certain facilities and food,
mm.
and there are certain things that will improve. It's about getting the squad and the team kind of going. That's the most important thing,
You're
and
only as good
building
as the
something
team.
new.
You're only as good as the team. Just to clarify about the drink, apologies if we've misled anyone. Christopher's saying they don't have a license to sell it. It's not that they have a license. They were selling canned alcoholic drinks, but they'd sold out of the canned alcoholic drinks, and there was no on draft. Is it called?
Well, is
Don't
that
drink.
what it was? There was no draft. I did see 6 packs of something, and I could see them opening them up. Like
Corona and
I was a
Peroni.
bit just like, why are they doing that? But
They nipped over to Costco and brought some beer back.
maybe they just haven't got the draft systems in place yet.
No, they haven't got it. I've just confirmed that
Yeah.
now. There was pizza, Greek, Indian, and fish and chips outside the front as well, which was good.
I
And
thought
I'm
we
sure they'll
were.
double
I
that
thought
operation when there's a full match on.
I thought we were getting those cups, like at Spurs, where you put the cup in and it fills up from the bottom. It's like a clever device.
They're going to have automatic
Yeah,
draft pumps for beer.
yeah.
Great. There's so much potential. I think inside the ground, just sort the teething problems with the food and the beer. It's not really that big of an issue. Structurally, the stadium, architecturally, it's amazing. I'd love to see some sponsorship and branding just to give it a little bit more character in and out. Toilets, incredible. Let's get a few more bins, please, in different places. Once Everton Way is done and the place opens up, South Stand access is going to be a lot easier. It's going to be a lot wider, less packed and chaotic. I think for me, the main things that I'm moaning about aren't related to things Everton control. They're more to do with parking, drop-off points, not opening the taxi ranks, Sandhills being not fit for purpose, and the shuttle buses from Lime Street taking an age. And there's no way around that. So, exciting for the future. I think there'll be a lot of fans who look at that and think they really miss Goodison because of the kind of the feel of Goodison. I don't think Bramley Moor Dock has the same feel. It's more modern, more grand. But what I did love about this, David, was you're so close to the pitch, no matter where you were. It feels grand but intimate. And when it's full and bouncing, I believe it's going to be one of the best stadiums in Europe. So I'm really happy and excited to move. Have you got anything to close on?
Not specifically, no.
But wasn't it just an amazing stadium when you strip all the sort of things out?
Yeah, if I strip out the teething problems and assume they were all back to what you'd expect, then yeah, it was. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more variation in the facade, in the lower facades, and a bit more branding throughout, and a bit internally. I would have personally liked
You're doing that, David.
an EFC or something on the seats, but I don't think they're doing that this time.
But it's good that Everton Way has got Everton spelt out there, so you're going to have Everton there through Everton.
Aerial shots will look incredible.
It's going to grow with
your
us.
Feeling inside the ground is great. Once you're in there, it's like, it's really impressive inside. It feels so much more compact than it looks from the outside. It looks lower density and spread and wider, but actually inside it looks steep and intense, and just need to get the full capacity in and actually get some noise to kind of feel it. You can't feel it from crowds spread across the ground.
That's the thing, though, David. It's so big, but so compact as well. It almost feels compact, but in a good way. And it's going to be exciting to see what it's like when you've got so many fans in there, what kind of atmosphere it can generate. Because it was silent, let's be honest. It was like a preseason match on steroids, or a Europa League game where you've already qualified and you send your C team out. There was no atmosphere. We weren't looking for that. Most people went to see around the stadium to make sure they could get to it. Well, I can tell you, getting to it is difficult on train, difficult by car, and it's just tough. It's just tough. But the actual stadium is going to transform the club in terms of the revenue they can generate from their £10.50 vegan burgers, especially if they don't need to turn the oven on to melt the cheese. Carl Dyke is saying, after walking today, the potential for businesses and whoever owns the wasteland is massive. Yeah, United Utilities owns some land to the north. Peel owns some land as well. They're going to do something there. Hot Walk are going to open. There's massive potential. I think they want Nelson Dock to build a hotel and some other facilities. So, Carl, that's some really good thoughts. Emma saying she had jogging up the stairs. It was tough by row 36. She was in 50. Yeah. Very, very steep. It was in the South Stand walking up. Felt like, I'm in the gym here.
Yeah, yeah, be braced if you're at the top of the stands. It is a bit of a workout.
There's pros and cons. If you want to sit and sit and look, I love the end-to-end view because you're not looking to the left the whole time, tilting your head. You've got the height for the perspective, but then it's very steep. The railings are a bit ugly, and then if everyone's sat down bored, it's going to be a totally different experience to the map to the proper game. But then if you can't deal with the steepness, then the sides is a lot more comfortable and Yeah, we're wittering on a little too much now. I think it's time to get this wrapped up.
Let's judge it again once things have been
It's a reaction to
discussed.
Testament number 2. We're not moaning.
Yeah,
You're going to get someone
it's exciting to
commenting,
see how it pans out.
You're going to always get someone after the stream on the comments going, "Oh, look at these! I'm moaning about a burger." It's just like, yeah, well, this is what YouTube is. This is YouTube in a nutshell. Do we genuinely care about the burger? Not really. Do we care about the beer? Not really. Do we care about parking and transport and accessibility? Yes.
Yeah, but some people don't. They care. They've got a whole day
They only care about the beer.
to socialize and to meander up to the ground and have the beers and have nice food. And everyone's got there for something different. It's important to respect what everyone's priorities are.
My priority at the end of the day is a good football team, and I will get the plane, to get a helicopter, to get a train, to get a bus, to get a shuttle bus, to walk, to cycle, to get a scooter, to get a moped, to get a quad bike, to swim through the River Mersey and back via Chester and drop me off, just to see Everton have a good football team. We would all go through those hoops for it. Thank you so much. Thanks, Charlie, for your kind words. Thanks, Kevin, and everyone else. And if you're new here, you know what to do. You can like, as always, and hit the subscribe button, as Danny Fradkin would like you to do. That's all from us. We'll see you next time.
Au revoir.